Hello, my name is Anna Ziu and I'm Policy Director for the UK Chamber of Shipping. And in this presentation, I'll be talking about the decarbonization of the shipping industry. Alexis de Tocqueville, a French sociologist and political theorist, once said, "In a revolution, as in a novel, the most difficult part to invent is the end." His quote is so true about the today discussions where we are presented with a plethora of options on the pathways to decarbonization. Shipping is the servant of global trade, which itself is arguably the greatest force for good ever created. 90% of the global trade is moved by sea and is the most efficient transport mode. Shipping emits around 2% of global GHG emissions, and it's at least 9 times more carbon efficient than road transport and around 50% more efficient than aviation. Over the last 10 years, the industry has made great strides by reducing its emissions by around 10%, while facilitating an impressive 30% increase of global trade. This is done through optimization of our operations and investments in technology and alternative fuels. However, according to latest studies, depending on the economic development, the emissions will increase by 20 to 120% between 2012 to 2050. But the industry, of course, is striving to go much further. The shipping industry has agreed through the International Maritime Organization to improve its efficiency by at least 40% by 2030 and reduce its absolute emissions by 40% by 2050. The latest target requires all ships trading globally to improve their efficiency by at least 85%, which can only be achieved, of course, with zero carbon fuels and technology. The strategy asks the industry to decarbonize as soon as possible, consistent with the Paris Agreement temperature goals. The adoption of mandatory measures will apply equally to all ships trading globally and include a review of the strategy and levels of ambition by 2023. Furthermore, it is important to state that the IMO deal is far more ambitious than aviation and commitments made by the rest of the world economy under Paris Agreement. It is the first international global agreement which contains explicit numeric ambition targets for short, mid, and long term. So how will the industry achieve these goals? Well, the 2030 goal is relatively achievable. This can be met with current technology and operational measures. However, to meet the 2050 goal, we need to switch to zero carbon emission fuels. Effectively, this would require fossil fuels used today to be replaced with alternatives such as batteries, fuel cells, sustainable bioenergy, or hydrogen and ammonia. Shipping is inherently a capital-intensive industry. It requires a large amount of capital to build, operate, maintain, and has very thin margins of profitability. In addition, the industry is characterized by high fragmentation with respect to ship types, sizes, and ownership. Ships have long lifespan of 20 to 30 years, and due to the international nature of trade, have long voyages and are highly dependent on the global fuel infrastructure. Consequently, these characteristics make the decarbonization of the sector very complex and slow without proper support. Despite that, the shift to zero-emission shipping is possible, but it requires a radical change throughout the whole maritime industry and the fuel supply chain. Zero-emission commercial ships will have to enter the fleet by 2030 and form a significant portion by 2050. This would require research and development and pilot projects within the next few years for these zero-emission options to evolve rapidly in the coming years. In addition, it is likely that the new energy sources would vary across the different sectors of shipping. Developing new fuels or propulsion technologies are just one part of the decarbonization story. In fact, the speed of the decarbonization of the shipping industry is also determined by the ability of ports to build the chosen pathways to decarbonization. During the development and then operation of these new solutions, ports will require the ability to receive those ships. That will need reception facilities, including new bunkering and significant new power supplies. Many of these investments will require an upfront cost, which might not necessarily be attractive in the short term, but for sure likely to be a cost saving in the long term. So what is the industry doing to achieve the targets set? The IMO is already discussing short-term measures to meet the 2030 target. This will potentially include mandating all existing vessels to meet design efficiency standards plus an operational carbon intensity indicator. There are also proposals for long-term measures, including the establishment of a 5 billion R&D fund by 2023, and also proposals to discuss economic incentives. In the UK, the Clean Maritime Plan is the vehicle to support zero-emission shipping. It was published last year and includes a number of actions to facilitate this transition. As an island nation where 95% of trade is transported by sea, the UK economy and development are highly dependent on shipping. In 2017, shipping and the maritime sector contributed an estimated £46 billion to the UK's economy. That is significantly higher than the contribution from rail, air and road sectors. Unfortunately, despite the vital role that the shipping industry plays in the UK's trade and subsequently its economic growth, compared to other sectors, so far it has seen the least support from the government with regard to green funds for R&D and the necessary green pilot projects. So the key asks for the government to accelerate the decarbonization of the shipping industry include making ship owners access to finance easier for retrofitting of green technologies and building of zero-emission vessels. There is a need to increase and speed up investment in R&D and demonstration of zero-emission technologies and fuels. This should be at least matched with funding we have seen in other sectors. Shipping is part of the solution. Therefore, increased support for coastal shipping around the UK and encouragement of modal shift to sea would assist the UK to reduce its overall transport emissions. That should be coupled with incentives and funds projects that accelerate short sea shipping's zero-emission transition. The government should also drive investments in new green port infrastructure that will transform UK ports to global leaders in sustainable green energy supply for shipping. There is a need for climate actions to be sustainable, credible, consistent and long-term, providing solutions that will give the industry the confidence to invest. In addition, the government should encourage effective global maritime environmental regulations through the IMO. Thank you.